Going to go ahead and call our workshop to order and declare a quorum of 7 trustees present. Takes us to item C1, public comments. Do we have any? No public comments. With that, we'll go to our workshop session. D1, consideration discussion related to updates on the strategic design process. Mr. Martindale.
Thank you, Mr. Nugent. Board members, we have had 2 additional strategic design meetings since last April's board meeting. Here to update us on that work is Cammie Green from Engage to Learn.
Good evening. I'm excited to share that we have finished the create phase of the strategic design process. And so that took place on April 29th and 30th. And on those days, the design team created the specific results and also started timelining those specific results, as well as created the Learning Innovation Framework model, which I will share with you the first draft of what that looks like here in just a minute. Coming up, we have our lead day, which will be on May 20th, and that'll be the last day that the entire design team will be together. And then on June 2nd, that's going to be more of an internal team from the district that is going to write the protocols, which are the learner and educator behaviors aligned to the Learning Innovation Framework. So this just is a little more detail about those upcoming dates. And the other one that you see on here is June the 8th. And that is the leadership training. That's actually going to include all district and campus leaders that day in the morning to really update them on the strategic plan, to do a learning framework analysis and really dig into how does that affect me and my role in the district. And so they'll do something that we call role goal clarity. And then in the afternoon, the campuses, the principals, they're going to really have an opportunity to dig in and create action plans on their campus based on the strategic goals and specific results in the district action plans. So one of the things about the Create Days is we go into a little bit more detail about the work that has been done, as these are really the days that start bridging the strategic design framework into action. Here's a few pictures of the design team from those Create Days. There's definitely a lot of critique that is happening on those days to come to whole group agreement. These are the goals that were finalized. And so I know that y'all saw those draft versions last time, and there were a few tweaks that were made to the words to get those finalized. So there are 6 that the design team ended up with. And then from each of those goals, the design team created specific results. So this is what is going to be happening in order to help reach those goals over the next 3+ years. And so I will just flip through each of these slides, but this first one is just on instructional practices. Implementing an innovative and personalized learning experience is the goal. And then 1, 2, and 3 that you see under there are the specific results that the design team wrote for each of those. And they'll be coming to a final timeline. So for example, they may say that number 1, that's what's going to happen next year, right, in year 1, but then number 2 and 3 may happen later on in years 2 and 3. This is the next goal. This was about elevating academic outcomes of historically underperforming student groups. And you can see the design team came up with 4 specific results centered around student success of underperforming groups, increasing student achievement, really with research-based best practices for that Tier 1 instruction, providing some flexibility for implementing interventions, and then also providing students and families with social emotional support. The next goal is about strengthening relationships. And so you can see the design team came up with 3 specific results for this goal. So really providing ongoing professional development to promote those relationships, establishing some programs for at-risk students, and then also engaging in more relationships between the school district and the community. The next goal that you see up there is on strengthening partnerships with the local businesses, community, organizations and higher education agencies, which it's great. We have a lot of higher education agencies in our backyard. So those specific results, there are 3 of them. So develop coordinated initiative for community partnerships, really identifying the needs of various groups within College Station ISD, and establishing relationships with partners to meet the identified needs. And the next goal is centered around the technology ecosystems for increasing access to devices, strengthening the infrastructure, and ensuring a safe and secure digital environment. There are 4 specific results under this one. So increasing the number of devices, improving Wi-Fi access, enhancing the safety and security of that infrastructure, and then also ensuring efficient and effective technology staffing is maintained. The next goal also centers around technology, but this is about transforming the learner experience through the purposeful integration of that instructional technology. And so there are 4 specific results for this goal, really establishing and utilizing a comprehensive instructional technology plan, implementing that plan, providing adequate resources, and then creating a system that's designed to receive and respond to those comprehensive plans. So that was all the specific results. That was a lot of work for anyone that participated on that design team. So that happened on one of the days. And then the other day in Create was to draft the Learning Innovation Framework. And so this is just the initial draft. This is not the final graphic. This is still going through revisions. And the design team on May the 20th will be able to give some feedback on the graphic design, because they all had great ideas. And so our graphics designer tried to take those and put them into one visual that you see up here, but these are the 6 stages of the Learning Innovation Framework. And as I mentioned, those are the clarity really of what is happening in each stage of the framework is going to be defined on June the 2nd. So just a recap of the next steps. These are the final days that are left in the strategic design process. We will wrap up with the board workshop on June the 14th, where the final strategic plan will be shared with you. And we do invite members of the design team to come and be a part of that final presentation. And that is all for the Create update. Are there any questions?
No question, but I think I can speak for Geraldine and Kimberly. I was pretty excited to see that design because we were all up in arms of what that might look like, and that's why we let the professionals take over. So yeah, pretty neat to see that going into Thursday this week. So yeah, real excited about what that's going to withhold on Thursday.
I guess you saw my face light up.
Uh-huh.
Yes, it's amazing what professionals can do. Half of it, yes. It's amazing what professionals can do. Exciting work.
Agreed. And I will say though, I mean, we joke about the graphic of it, but we spent hours going over the words on that. I mean, really talking about each, those 6 words up there and the meaning behind them. I mean, so much has gone into every piece of what has happened in this strategic design. And it's been, I really feel it's been amazing. It's been emotionally taxing sometimes. I mean, it's been, for me, some ups and downs. Sometimes it's coming all together, and then sometimes it seems like I don't know where it's heading. But after 5 days of it, it is really starting to come together. And so I really thank everybody who's participated in it up to this point, certainly all the community members and the staff that's been a part of it, and the other 3 people around this table that have been involved with it. So I really do think we've had some difficult but very important discussions in there, and we've hashed out things, and it's really been a good experience, and I think it's going to be very good for the district. So.
Anyone else? All right. Ms. Green, thank you so much. Thank you for your leadership in facilitating this process, and we're looking forward to the final result.
Yeah, well, thank you for your comments today, and I'm excited to be able to share the final results on June the 14th. Thank you.
Thank you, Cammie.
All right, that's going to take us to D2, consideration, discussion, and possible action related to scheduling a management oversight workshop for facilities. Mr. Martindale.
Thank you, Mr. Nugent. Board members, Policy BAA Local provides board oversight of the district's major systems. To ensure the board stays informed, one of our 6 major systems is presented to the board each semester. Next up's the Facilities Department. And we typically schedule these in 2-hour sessions around lunch, and have provided in transmittal 3 different options to possibly consider. So let me just read those, and then we can kind of begin with the process of elimination if the group would like. Thursday, June 17th, and that's 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Wednesday, June 23rd, same time there. And Thursday, June 24th. So will any of those or some of those dates not work for the group?
June 24th, I'll potentially be out of town, but the other 2 dates are fine.
I'm only good for June 17th.
As am I.
June 17th, is that a possibility for the group?
Looks like the only one.
There we go. All righty, so we will schedule that and carry this over to our transmittal calendar and communicate when we get closer. Thursday, June 17th, 11 to 1 p.m. here. Thank you.
That's good for you, Mr. Hall? I feel like we just...
Oh, yeah, we probably should have checked with John, too. Sorry.
Well, something tells me you probably did. All right, so D3, consideration and discussion related to programming for Collegeview High School. Mr. Martindale.
All right, thank you, Mr. Nugent. Dr. Heath is here with us this evening. He's had the opportunity to be in the district for 4 days this month as he's transitioned to Collegeview High School. He and Ms. Parkerson have been working together to get feedback from the different stakeholder groups and to create a short-term plan for 21-22, and also have some conversation for more of a long-term plan for Collegeview High School. They're here to provide us more information on this item. Is Ms. Parkerson, our Executive Director of Secondary Education, and Dr. Heath, our Principal in Transition for Collegeview High School.
I like that title, Principal in Transition. So good evening. We are excited to be here this evening to share with you the work that we have done this May regarding Collegeview High School as we look toward the future. Collegeview is designated as a school of choice model to augment our 2 comprehensive high schools and the programs that are there. This May, Dr. Heath has actually been here for 6 days with us.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I didn't count this week.
It's so
My
many more,
apologies.
indeed, that's right. So
This week's flown by, Ms. Parkerson,
it
sorry.
has. I'm with you. So during the beginning of the month, whenever he came, he had an opportunity to gather feedback from a wide variety of groups. And so we are fortunate that we have the advantage of getting to draw upon all of the community feedback and the surveys from our strategic design process. And so we're able to use that work, as well as meet with the middle school and high school principal groups. We had a survey that we sent through our high school and middle school campus leadership teams to get some more information. And then Dr. Heath met individually with every single person on his campus and had a one-on-one visit and really got to know his staff and had opportunities to interact with his students. And so really at the beginning, we wanted to gather feedback from a wide variety of perspectives and then assess those needs. We met together the following week and took all of that information, synthesized it, and for those of you who have been in the strategic design visioning process, we did a mini version of that as quickly as possible with the Collegeview staff, and gave them opportunity to reflect on where they are and where they would like to go, drawing upon all of the feedback that we had. We then have met together for many hours, brainstorming, throwing out ideas, and really that's what has led us to the last couple of days in which Dr. Heath has already met individually once again with everybody on his staff to share ideas and brainstorm. He attended our secondary principals meeting yesterday, and we had an opportunity to share some of these ideas as well. Certainly we're here tonight to share with you, and our plan is to recruit and move forward very quickly from here. So with that being said, the current programs offered at Collegeview are at the academic dual credit. There are greater opportunities here than at the comprehensive high schools. There are 2 complete CTE programs of study, the fire science and animation programs. And if you were to pull up the website right now, you would see an emphasis on the scope of choices in that smaller environment, such as art, animation, horticulture, and so forth. This vision statement is wonderful, but our challenge that we had to the staff, does it truly capture what distinguishes this high school from the other high schools? Okay, so we started with those foundations to build upon. So as we gathered all of that feedback from the various groups, there was these 2 clear patterns and a lot of additional information as well. There seems to be a lot of confusion currently in our district about what Collegeview does versus the disciplinary alternative education programs, which also happen to be housed in the same building. They're very much 2 distinct entities. And so we know that we need to clearly articulate and delineate those 2 things. And step 1 in that process is talking about Collegeview with you all tonight. We also need to make sure that everyone understands how Collegeview is different from a comprehensive high school, and so that we know when we're recruiting and identifying what the draw is, okay? We also know that it's really important that as we look toward the future of Collegeview, that we have a true partnership between all 3 of our high schools in the district. Our purpose with Collegeview is not to create a smaller comprehensive high school with the same offerings. We want to make sure that our programs there really do partner with and augment and offer things that are different from our comprehensive high schools, but also complement their needs for students who may not be best served in a larger high school environment. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Heath for a moment so he can share with you their draft vision and mission statement.
So the first thing we wanted to challenge them with was look at the current vision of Collegeview High School. Did it fit what we're trying to do moving forward? A lot of the teachers felt that it was a great vision statement. It did hit all the trigger words, but they wanted to bring it down and make it more concise. And so we sent out the survey. The teachers filled it out. They did it individually. Then they talked amongst their table. Then they cross-talked. And based on that, this is what the draft of what all the teachers really scored high on was Collegeview's vision is to inspire, prepare, and empower students to achieve lifelong success. Then we talked to them about creating a mission. Obviously, that vision is where do we want to get? And then the mission is how are we going to get there? And kind of looking at the strategic design that we just went over, it was really neat to see that it's providing individualized opportunities for this smaller environment student to help them get plugged in, help motivate them so that they can move on. We do want to go after certain types of kids, but it needs to be a broad spectrum of those certain types of kids so that we're getting them plugged into something that they're not getting at the comprehensive high school. That a normal traditional student is getting involved in athletics, fine arts, band, things like that. We want to get them plugged into something so that they can be successful also.
Thank you, Dr. Heath. I just want to point out a couple of keywords there before we move off of that, because I think that when you look at the work that is going on in the district as a whole, you'll notice that the focus on success, meeting the unique needs of each individual student, and here especially at Collegeview, getting them ready is that step right before the post-secondary opportunities for their future career path. When we talk about college, that's still preparing you for your career, and so being really future forward, future facing with where we're headed. So who are Collegeview High School students? Here's a basic description here. We are looking for students who desire a college and or career focused, customized high school experience in a non-traditional high school setting. These students may need additional support in their pursuit of post-secondary opportunities. For example, if you're a first generation college student, you may not know how to navigate all of those types of things. We know that we have students in our district who who need to see the opportunities that lay before them. They may not see that if we don't expose them to those opportunities. When you look at the definition of the school of choice model in the Texas Association for Alternative Education Programs, some of the verbiage of the second bullet really comes straight from that we are looking for to serve historically underserved students, such as students who are at risk and or economically disadvantaged. And so notice that the use of the words may and such as. We're really wanting to help create the pipeline, the avenues for that post-secondary success. So we've used that word non-traditional several times, and so I want to clarify what we're saying when we call it a non-traditional high school setting. This setting allows a smaller environment, and I mentioned this earlier, we're not talking about high school light, just the same things in mini form. We're talking about someone who, a traditional 7-period day, 50 minutes, it may not work for them. We're looking at the flexibility that can be provided in a smaller environment. We're looking at the different relationships that can be provided through that enables us to increase our mentoring and the progress monitoring toward graduation, as well as really meeting with them one-on-one to personalize their college and career planning and those experiences. And I think it really comes into play here with the level of flexibility and opportunity to accelerate that we can provide through our course offerings and our programs at Collegeview. If the pandemic has shown us anything, is that when you start looking at our high school students, they are latching on to that idea of flexibility and autonomy. When you look at who our virtual learners still are, it's a lot of our juniors and seniors, and many of them are working and supporting families and doing those different things and have figured out how to strike that balance. And so we know that that's a long-term need in our district to serve students who fit in that description as well. Collegeview also currently has an 8-period block schedule and a 50-minute advisory period every day. And my high school master schedule brain saw that, and I thought, oh my goodness, we could get kids 9 credits a year from that. Comparatively at our comprehensive high schools, that's 7 credits. And so that also feeds into that idea of being able to accelerate and have some flexibility in what we're offering. So we are going to move forward with adding an academy model to Collegeview. And so we will offer 3 different academy programs. The first is the Collegiate Academy, and that is what is primarily offered there right now. So currently, students at Collegeview can earn up to 55 hours of dual credit with STEM courses. And then there's a 42-hour non-STEM, more core academic focus through our partnership with Blinn College. And I'll elaborate a little bit more about the future of that program in a moment. Just wanted to give an overview here. We're looking to add a career and industry academy. So we want more students to be earning an industry-based certification while completing a complete program of study. Ideally, that is not offered already somewhere else. And we shared with the Visioning Institute, with the staff, all of the different career clusters and programs of study that are not currently offered. And we have some ideas of things that really match our community needs and that will really feed our industries here locally as well. The third academy would be the Accelerated Academy. This would give students an opportunity to earn that foundation high school diploma with an endorsement, those 26 credits, at an accelerated pace through a custom graduation plan that includes both in-person courses and potentially courses online through Edgenuity with the mentoring and supervision, for lack of a better word, of the teacher in the room to help them and answer their questions and provide that support. So a student could be in the Accelerated Academy and also participate in dual credit classes and career and industry courses as well. Those are not necessarily mutually exclusive, but a student might also just choose to be accelerated and go for those 26 credits, etc. So that's an overview of the academy model, but let's talk a little bit more in depth about each of those academies. So for this next school year, we're going to continue to offer our current dual credit offerings that are already there. We will work through the course of this next school year to streamline those dual credit offerings to produce an associate's degree, should someone be so focused to begin early and get there. We also are going to explore partnerships with universities and technical colleges, other programs, to build a direct avenue so that these students can pursue a 4-year degree in as few as 2 years, because we have put the foundations in place. So those 55 hours, up to 55 hours, are a lot of things available. But we need to provide that focus for kids to make sure that everything that they are taking is building and getting them set up to head straight into college, should they choose to do so. For the Accelerated Academy, we would begin recruiting immediately for this. And once again, we're looking for students who desire to accelerate their learning, to have that flexibility in their day. And we have a growing number of students in our district, pre-pandemic and potentially exacerbated because of the pandemic, who desire to graduate more quickly in 3 to 3.5 years. Both comprehensive high schools have shared their data, and that has increased over the last few years, that desire. We also have a growing number of students due to the pandemic who have credit deficiencies and who need to accelerate to get caught back up. And we would like to partner that with, not only can we help you get caught up, but here's a college or career path that we are setting you up to make sure that you're successful and ready for life after high school. The Career and Industry Academy, I'd shared this previously, but the current pathways, the current programs of study, to use the correct CTE verbiage, are listed: Design and Multimedia Arts and Animation, and our Fire Science Academy, which currently had 1 student enrolled. So we are going to table that for this next year, but keep it on the books and try to grow it again. So I wanted to be transparent that we're not offering those courses this next year, but we're keeping those programs. We met Dr. Heath, Mr. Ross, our director of CTE. We've met several times actually, but just before heading down to the meeting, we were going back through and looking at what we can do next year to expand our career and technical education offerings. And really, most of that going into next school year will come in the form of creating internship and apprenticeship programs through some of our CTE offerings that are already available, such as project-based research, kind of a practicum class where we can create individual contracts for kids, and really set them up with industry. We're also looking at expanding career prep, the former co-op program, over into Collegeview as well. And then beyond next year, we know that this is an important piece. We've been exploring, like I said, other programs of study. Hospitality and tourism is one that is key for our area, and we see a lot of opportunity to go ahead and potentially add an introductory course or 2 for next year, knowing that the following year we could even potentially be partnering directly with some of our local hotels and having kids set up with internships that could lead to paid employment in that field in particular. Okay. We also know that we have an opportunity to continue to partner with and take advantage of the programs offered at Bryan's CTE Center, such as automotive and welding and things like that are not offered elsewhere in the district. And the Collegeview block schedule can work very well in pairing and giving kids time to travel and take advantage of those opportunities. So that is a lot of information in a short amount of time. What questions and comments do you have? I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you for this presentation. I think we've all been excited to see this today. Just a couple of questions. Mm-hmm. So do you have, like, initially out of the kind of the box, do we have a goal for enrollment for Collegeview, or when will that, tell me your thoughts on that piece.
So, indeed, we've had lots of conversations about that and what we want to be realistic. I don't want to speak out of turn, but for me personally and in our conversations with Dr. Heath, we want to recruit as many kids as possible for next year, and we think the Accelerated Academy will be a great avenue to do that. We also have strategically placed the 8th grade Student Success Initiative program at Collegeview this summer. So we'll have more kids in the building who are able to see firsthand those things that are available. So heading into next year right now, the current enrollment is around 50 students. My personal goal would be to at least double that heading into next school year. Let's see if we can get 100 or more. And I'll keep y'all posted on that through the transmittal.
And what would you see as your, Dr. Heath, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm going to put you on the spot. After your evaluation and what all the meetings with the different stakeholders and, now that you're getting into it with Collegeview, what do you see from the outside as your biggest obstacle?
For me, the biggest, well, first of all, meeting with all the staff, they're excited for change. They want a clear vision. We still have faculty there that was there when the Timber Academy was there, that still believe that was a good pathway. We have teachers that came in right after Timber when they started Collegeview that are like, we're not doing anything different. They all express that they need a hook.
Right.
And so my vision for Collegeview is to open the door to all kids that choose not to be involved in a comprehensive high school program so that we can plug them in a niche. Everybody needs a niche. Even the kids that say they don't want to participate, they need a niche. And so can we offer those career-based certifications? Can we help that kid accelerate? Like Tiffany said, with the students that currently are in credit deficiency, we can bring those kids in too, help them get their credits caught back up, and then hopefully with that support, give them some other options for moving on past high school. And then also looking at the Collegiate Academy, I think the associate's degree is a huge impact. One of the visions that I have, and not to speak completely out of turn, but partnering with schools like Rellis, where if we can get a kid on a correct path through Blinn, get that associate's degree, could we get them into Rellis to one of those 10 universities that are currently there? They can get a bachelor's in 2 years, stay at home. I know I'm still paying off student loans from all my schooling. The government gave me free money and then they told me I had to pay it back. But, could you imagine a student getting a bachelor's degree by 20 years old? Scary, but how awesome would that be? And they can live at home, stay in the community, and so we can serve those kids that aren't taking the AP classes or plugged in to the different activities that the comprehensive high school has. So we're giving them an option, giving them a purpose, other than I go to school because I have to be at school. So that's my goal.
Okay.
And related to enrollment goals, the capacity of the campus right now is about 240 students. And so, we would like to hope that in several years that we have a line out the door with so many kids interested in wanting to come, that we get to then have a conversation about the full usage of the building and so forth.
And Tiffany, would you say this due to the pandemic or whatever the case may be, the number of kids at our comprehensive high schools that are running credit deficiency, there's a significant number of those students that would be eligible for this possible accelerated component rather quickly? That would be a possible enrollment pool, correct?
Yes, sir, absolutely.
And also in addition to that, the SSI 8th grade, the summer school component strategically placed at Collegeview allows Dr. Heath the opportunity to network with the current 8th graders going to high school.
Yes, sir.
Right? Okay.
Can I follow up? I'm excited about everything I've heard, I'll say that. A couple of follow-ups, maybe some details, especially for the things you're looking at for the next year. One is around the students who do have some of those credit deficiencies. How to say it, but I mean, is it at what point is it something we would require them to go to Collegeview, or it would be a suggestion? And then, I mean, have y'all worked out some of those type of details?
So our current model is application-based, and so we would continue for it to be application-based. We are going to go back through after we refine the application to be in line with the academies, to go through for the back end, for the review committee to look at different criteria for that. So I said a whole lot to get back to, we will continue that practice right now. I think there will be strong power in our partnerships with the 2 comprehensive high schools and our counselors and our assistant principals and our teachers really understanding what we're trying to do, and having them be part of that recruitment tool and getting kids plugged in. And part of our discussion too is in June we would have individual meetings with kids and set up and figure out the right plan for them and figure out which cohort group they need to go into and so forth.
And then kind of, again, along the lines of making sure we all understand what's happening next year, getting the accelerated piece, the other side, how flexible is a student's day? I mean, is it going to be a full day potentially? Have you decided those details yet?
So we have taken a close look at all of the attendance policies and requirements from TEA. We know for someone to be a full-time student, they need to be in school for at least 4 hours per day. And we have some ideas that I feel like I need to go back to cabinet and share before I reveal them publicly. But the way that day is structured, there's great ability to provide some flexibility.
The idea would be for them to take as many credits as possible, up to the minimum absolutely for attendance purposes. But the additional flexibility is if they accelerate the number of credits they get, or if they need flexibility in their schedule for work or whatever that may be, correct? So that is the lens we're looking at.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And some of that would be, for example, seniors right now can have up to 2 off periods. And so that would remain in play here. If someone were part of an internship program or a work program, that would impact the number of periods of in-person attendance during the day as well.
Getting up to work during the day versus going after school, staying up till midnight, 1 o'clock, coming in, trying to work. It's tough. So if we can provide that flexibility, that'd be awesome.
Oh, great. Thank you. I agree with you that it will be a draw, I think, for a lot of students. Like you said, a lot of the high school students this year have utilized that flexibility because of COVID and I think we would still see some wishing they had that. So,
yes, ma'am.
Thanks.
For career, pull this up. Career and industry. You said you had a lot of ideas about what that would look like. Have you engaged industry?
I almost called you Dr. Ross. You almost got a magic degree. Mr. Ross meets with the community frequently and has all the data for the area on what those things are. So we have that to rely upon, and that's where the hospitality and tourism piece comes from. As we move forward and look at additional programs to add, a lot of that will be driven by student interest and student desires. And so we have some more work to do with that, with surveying that as well. And I would foresee too, as we use that next school year, that 21-22 school year, Dr. Heath's not shy. So I know he will be engaging more community stakeholders and business owners and so forth in trying to set up those internship and work program opportunities, and partnering with Mr. Ross in that as well. So more work in that front is coming.
Yeah, very good. I mean, I understand it is very important for the students to have buy-in and be interested in it, but I think it's also very important that industry is telling you we're going to have these jobs available or not.
That's right. And that's the carrot for the students, is that we're able to show, if you do this, then this is how we can help you. And this is what you can do to take care of your family and provide for yourself after high school if you make this choice. It's powerful.
And then curious, you mentioned you're hoping to have 100 students here just shortly. How would that look divided across the 3 academies?
I would foresee that the largest enrollment growth would initially come from the Accelerated Academy because of the number of students who we do have who are credit deficient right now. Between the two comprehensive high schools, we have over 200 plus prime candidates to offer this opportunity to for next year. So I would see that first.
Thank you.
Kind of a follow-up to Mr. Hall's question. And I realize Dr. Heath's been here for 6 whole days, but
Glorious days.
4 days before this week.
Yes.
gotcha. Has there been any discussion yet as far as goals or metrics with how we're going to measure the success of the academies and Collegeview as a whole and so forth?
So that is in the works. I will tell you that one of the reasons why the academy model is appealing is because we can watch the growth of each of the 3 programs and see what is of the highest interest. And then as we evaluate, we can strategically abandon if there is something that is not continuing or growing based on that data. So I don't have a plan to be able to show you today, but yes, sir.
I have to say this really excites me. Can y'all hear me? Okay. I have to say this really excites me. And I also am a strong believer that kids need to feel like they belong. So I love that you're focusing on that as well. I think the kids that feel like they belong and they're part of a group, part of something, they perform better. That's just a theory that I have. But I have a couple clarification questions for anyone that's interested in this. So any kiddo in our district can apply, correct?
Yes.
And can they apply to Collegeview at any time during their 4 years of high school, or do they have to do it leading up to their freshman year? How does that work?
So they can apply at any time during their high school experience. Ideally, we wouldn't want to have a candidate make the move in the middle of the senior year. Right. But certainly if there are extenuating circumstances that need to be considered and they'd applied, they would be considered as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else? Dr. Heath, Ms. Parkinson, thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.
Look forward to it. All right, takes us to D4, consideration discussion related to updates on the 2021 bond planning process. Mr. Martindale.
Thank you, Mr. Nugent and board members. Since our last April board meeting, we've had 2 additional bond planning meetings. Here to update us on that work is Ken Hutchins from VLK Architects. Ken has served as our facilitator with the committee throughout the process, and Ms. Strauss will be assisting with the presentation as well.
Well, thank you very much. First, I want to say that the committee has now met 4 times. They have been very diligent in their work and very committed. We have kept it to 2 hours as promised, but they've been very full. We start on time and we end on time. I don't think we've stopped early yet, but we also haven't been late. So they've done a lot of work. VLK has done a great job in helping us facilitate that process. So I am going to turn it over to Mr. Hutchins with VLK, and he's going to go over the consensus that the committee has come to so far and what our next steps will be at our next meeting.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Mr. Nugent, board, Mr. Martindale. Proud to be here and report on the work of the committee. First, we'll go over the current committee consensus and where they are. So like Ms. Strauss said, they have met 4 times, and currently the committee has reached consensus on projects that total $78,475,299. This goes over the following categories, which are safety and security, deferred maintenance, CTE, fine arts, athletics, technology, and transportation, land. During the time that they have met, they present facts by district experts and VLK architects on each of these items, where folks that are head of these departments have come and talked to the committee and told them the status of those categories in their work. Items like safety and security include cameras. Deferred maintenance is air conditioning, heating unit replacement. It's also roof repairs and roof replacement and general repairs, but it also includes campus renovations at A&M Consolidated High School, Southwood Valley Elementary School, and Pebble Creek Elementary School, and Cypress Grove Intermediate School. Elements such as transportation, the need to replace some buses and add buses to the fleet have also been discussed, as well as the ability for land and what are the future land needs of the district as your demographics grow and you need to be able to facilitate and grow your schools, and giving the district the ability to buy land at opportune times that are presented during those. So these are the categories that they've heard and where they have worked to currently. And like Ms. Draw said, they've been incredible workers. They've been very focused in getting after the facts and asking questions of the experts and participating. And the district administration put together a really good committee. So the next steps is that our goal is to come to closure on a final recommendation at the May 25th meeting that they're going to have. At that meeting, the following will be discussed. They're going to get information from the district on proposition amounts for the projects based on the new election law and the requirement for different propositions. There will be a general proposition, a technology proposition, and currently the way they are looking at their work, probably 2 propositions related to athletics. They're also going to receive follow-up information on the scope of athletic renovations. And then the district's going to provide updated information related to property values, which may provide the committee additional capacity to meet the needs of the district. And Ms. Draws has some information on that.
I believe it was at the third meeting, the financial advisor for the district came and presented some scenarios on capacity that would not increase the tax rate on the debt service side. And they had to use some estimates, and we provided them with 1% property value growth for 21 through 23. So for 3 years, we wanted to be conservative. And that came up with about $75 million. That the committee could consider up to that amount without impacting the tax rate with an increase. So since then, and you'll hear in a little bit with the budget update, we've gotten some additional information. Preliminary property values have come out. And so we want to be very transparent with the committee as they're finalizing their recommendations to you as a board. So we'll be working on some additional capacity that might be available with this additional information or updated information we have for property values. So we're going to be sharing that with them next week as well, because they've worked really hard. So we want to make sure that they have all the information that they need to make that recommendation to you. So that will be shared on the 25th as well. So are there any questions for either of us?
Just a clarification. The presented number is what everyone's voted on. We as a committee have not decided if that's what direction we want it to go or not. I mean, is that a fair, maybe I need to state that more clearly, but we've just been voting.
Right. So when we say consensus, and Mr. Hutchins, correct me if I'm wrong, so that was based on tables, and basically the tables, at least 3 out of 4, have come to agreement on particular packages or projects that totaled that $78.4 million. So at the next meeting, we'll go over a few ones that we call ties. They're 2 and 2. So we want to make sure which direction the committee wants to go. And we will finalize that recommendation from the committee to the board. So yes, this is what we call consensus. It's not a recommendation at this point. Does that answer your question? Okay.
And Ms. Strauss, that 78 million, that does include the 2 items. There were 2 items. There was 2 to 2, correct?
No, it does not include those.
It does not include those.
No.
Okay.
Those were that were
And there
had
were
clear
2?
consensus. Yes, I believe there were 2 items that were 2 and 2. Most of the items were unanimous for all
Yes.
4 tables. We only had a couple that were 3 in favor of, considering, and 1 that wasn't. And I think there was only like 2 of those. So it was very clear across the committee whenever they were saying yes. It was very clear.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, well, thank you also. Mr. Hutchins, thank you for your leadership. And again, you're just facilitating the process. It's been very well run, and it's nice to be at the finish line. So thank you.
Thank y'all. Appreciate it.
And Ms. Strauss, I think you're going to stay up here with us for a minute.
I'm going to stay up here.
All right, this takes us to D5, consideration, discussion, and possible action related to the 2021-22 budget development. Mr. Martindale.
All right, thank you, Mr. Nugent. Ms. Strauss is here to provide us an update on our 21-22 budget development. She'll also share some information with us regarding the ESSER 3 federal funds as well. Ms. Strauss?
Thank you. It's that time of year. You're going to hear budget at every meeting, I think, until August. But just quickly, we're going to go over the goals, objectives, and challenges. A lot of this information you've heard a couple of times before, so some of that will breeze through. We have some historical data this time on property values, tax rates, that sort of thing. We're going to update you on the 2020-2021 current budget, because this is the base. This is the baseline for the budget that we're going to be working on and that you will adopt in August. Look at some preliminary information for 21-22, as well as our timeline. So again, these are the budget objectives that have been shared with you the past couple of months. So nothing has changed here, but it's just keeping us focused on what our goals are. And then we are still in phase 1. Hopefully the legislature ends on May 31st, and we can move on to phase 2. Hopefully we'll get some answers on a few things and can move forward. But we're still in that preliminary stage of not knowing what our funding and some of the compliance and rules are. So our budget challenges, some of these have changed a little bit since the last time. Nothing really fell off. But again, the legislative session ends May 31st, so that is delaying confirmation of our funding. And that's every 2-year process. So this is not something new, but every 2 years we go through this. So as I start looking through things, I look at trends and I look at expenditures and things over the past 5 years, because we can't plan every single item that comes across. So I look at 5 years. But in looking at this, we now have 2 out of 5 years that are not normal. They're outside of that. So last year, it was because school ended in March with the pandemic. And we had a number of expenditures and paying staff and a number of things that happened. This year, again, pandemic, virtual, face-to-face, a number of expenditures that have had to happen. So again, I've got 2 years now out of 5 that I normally look back to that are outside of the norm. So that's causing a bit of a challenge that we have to look to. Again, our uncertain enrollment, that's been shared with you every time. It's going to be interesting to see in August when school starts what our enrollment would be, since it was down this year, and it's anticipated that our Kinder First enrollment will be quite a bit higher. And then we have some new developments with our stimulus funds, the ESSER funds that I will share a little bit later in the presentation that have come about that's causing some interesting challenges. So our property tax rate history, this goes back to the 14-15 fiscal year. And you can see for the past 3 years, College Station ISD has experienced declines in our total tax rate. So 1920 was due to House Bill 3 that mandated that decline in the tax rate. Last year, that again went a little bit down because of what we call the compression. If your tax values grow too high or not above a threshold, then it forces that tax rate down. And in all 3 of those, we've gone down on the INS rate. So we've experienced a decline for our taxpayers for the past 3 years. Our property value growth, we've been very fortunate to have property value growth in all of these years. You can see 16, 17 was higher than normal, kind of got back down to where we were in 15 and probably prior years to that. And in 2020, it was low as expected because of the pandemic and some other things. So 1.91% is what we had last year. And then our enrollment and our average daily attendance. The red line is our average daily attendance, which is how we're funded between average daily attendance and then the weight that might apply for some of our special populations. And our enrollment is the blue bar. So you can see in 2019 there was a dip. That was when the charter school opened here and caused a decline for all area districts, I believe. And then this year, of course, this is the enrollment is actual. It's as of the snapshot date. And the average daily attendance is estimated where I have calculated, I think we will end at the end of May, just in a couple weeks. So
And-
this one has been the pandemic.
The enrollment, the snapshot's end of October, correct? Is it 13/6? Because I think we're at 13/8.
Yes,
right
this
now.
is as of 13/6, and it's always at that date, and it's across the state, so that you have something to compare to. And everybody's doing it at the same time. So if you look on anything from Texas Education Agency and they have enrollment, it's always going to be that snapshot date for any school district. So now let's get into the current year that we're in, 2021. We budgeted for average daily attendance of 13,279. I believe we're going to end around 12,777. But we had that hold harmless, if you recall, that was calculated based on the last 3 years and then anticipated growth this year. So our average daily attendance that we got to use for funding was very close to what we budgeted. So that was really good. That's helping us this year. Weighted average daily attendance, though, was quite a bit lower than what we budgeted, and I think that's because of the growth in some of those special populations, that being CTE and special ed in particular. We were anticipating higher growth than we probably actually did, but when you use hold harmless, you must use it across all populations. And they would give us the actuals if it came out better financially, but it doesn't. We're better off taking that higher hold harmless ADA and a little less on those special populations. So we are using hold harmless all year. Again, our property value growth of 1.9 compared to when we adopted the budget of 1.5. And then we get into our revenues. Property taxes, we're doing very well, coming at a little bit better than budget. As we've been saying, interest earnings is well below what we budgeted, and it doesn't look like it's going to improve this next year. So we're going to be lower on that. These other areas that we're lower on is a lot of COVID-related things. We did not have the participation. We did not rent our facilities out for most of the year. So all of those kinds of things participated in this decline from what we budgeted. I want to draw your attention to this number right here, $964,000. It's additional revenue that we're going to get for prior year state adjustments. And that's property value adjustments that we had because of judgments on property value appeals and that sort of thing. So that's a one-time payment, and that's really saving us in this year of the decline. So I wanted to point that out because we won't see that again next year. It's a one-time revenue. And then we have our TRS on behalf and our federal monies, which is mainly our SHARS program. We did not budget for recapture, but based on the hold harmless and our property value growth of 1.9, we are estimating we will have $568,000 of recapture. I like to put this on this page because it does relate to the state revenue. So if you looked at just revenue alone, we're going to we think we'll be about $250,000 short of where we budgeted. That's with the help of this $964,000. And then if you put recapture in there, we're going to be short close to $800,000 net of recapture. Any questions before I move forward? Okay, and then we get to the expenditure side. And this is a little different than you've seen before, but this is the format that you will see at the end of the year. It's by function instead of by what we call spending object payroll. But this is how you have to adopt the budget, and it's how you will see the end of year financials. So this is where we budgeted, and this is current budget. It's inclusive of any amendments. And this is where we're estimating we'll be at the end of the year. So you can see slightly under in total, even though we have recapture payments here estimated. So that's a good thing. So at least we'll come in close to where we thought we were. Then we have what we call these extraordinary items, or things that don't normally fit into our regular revenue or expenses. So you all know that we've had two pretty catastrophic events this year, weather related. We had the freeze, and we also had some severe hail damage. So what we've done here is we've added in $600,000, and that's going to be our deductibles, our anticipated deductibles on those two events. So that's what we're hoping for there. I'm sorry. There we go. We've had some COVID relief funds, mainly for prior year expenditures. So that's some revenue that we're going to, or will recognize this year. We have some reimbursements to the general fund. This is from our ESSER 1 funds. And again, I'll explain some of those a little bit later. So that's going to offset some expenditures. And then we have prior purchase agreements. So the COVID, those last three items are all pandemic related federal funds. So our prior purchase agreements are mainly technology related, and they will reimburse us for technology purchases that have occurred really since March. We filed the application, and it involves more than just the general fund, but this 618 is what we are anticipating we will receive to reimburse us for expenditures back to last March. So some is current year, some is prior year. So if we net that $600,000 loss with these revenues, we think we're going to have other resources in the amount of about $200,000. So come to bottom line or net effect to what we call fund balance, very close to the original budget that you adopted. But you have to remember there's some one-time things in here some of them are hurting us, like the $600,000, but other things like that state revenue are helping us out to get there. I will tell you, we have not received the $964,000 yet. So this estimate is assuming we will get it by the end of August. We feel like we will, based on the attorney that works this process for us. We feel like we will. Also, there's not summer school expenses scheduled in here. We are going to plan on using ESSER and CARES Act funds for that, so I haven't budgeted or anticipated any in here. And then those catastrophic insurance losses are only at the deductible amounts, which is what we expect. So those are kind of some assumptions to be able to get to this. So now heading into 21-22. You can see that the first couple columns, two columns are 2021. There's a budget and the estimated final. I list this because when I start looking at growth, I can't go with the budget and I can't go with hold harmless. I need to go with where we actually ended up. And so that's why that estimated final is really important. You've got three scenarios there. The first scenario assumes a 2.5% growth in enrollment and average daily attendance, and a 2.69% increase in our property values. This is based on updated information from Brazos Central Appraisal District. They are required to provide to us around May 1st of each year the preliminary values. And then we all know the appeals process will happen. So they have estimated after appeals that College Station ISD should experience somewhere around 2.69%. So that's what we've updated our scenarios for. Now, it's real important also to remember in House Bill 3, I talked about tax rate compression that last year, anything above 2.5% this year will result in tax compression if they do not change it in the legislative session in the next week or so. So at 2.69%, that would force the tax rate down to 0.9647. So it's not a lot, but a little bit. We're just barely over that 2.5%. And then in scenario 2, we have increased the ADA growth to be 3%, saying, well, we might do a little better than 2.5%. And sometimes that is a conservative number on that loss of 2.69. So 3% in property value growth. The difference there is the tax rate would be compressed to 0.9619. And then the last scenario is what we call the demographers' estimates. They have projected us to have a 3.9% enrollment growth. And yet I've kept that 2.69 property value. So that has the same tax rate as scenario 1, but a little bit different weighted average daily attendance and average daily attendance. So those are the 3 scenarios that we're going to work toward. So looking at revenues, you can see because we're compressing our tax rate, and I'm sorry, I keep hitting that and I don't want to. The same property tax collections across all 3. Because as our property values grow, the tax rate's going to decline. So you can see that doesn't change. We've lowered our interest earnings to be somewhere where we think we're going to end up this year, and moved our other local and co-curricular back up to where it has been in the past. Because we're all assuming we're going to be something more like normal next year, right? So there. And then our state revenue, based on that ADA growth, you can see scenario 3 being the highest ADA growth has the highest state revenue of the 3. And our TRS on behalf, we've kept constant. For those of you who don't understand TRS on behalf, that is the amount that the state pays towards our employee retirement system. So we have to recognize that as revenue, but we also recognize it as an expense. So it is a direct wash. And then our federal revenues. So in looking at these, no recapture is estimated in any of these scenarios, but scenario 1 would bring us an additional $1.1 million over our 2021 budget. Scenario 2, 1.9 million, and scenario 3, 2.8. So if you'll recall on a couple slides before, this past year, the budget that was adopted had expenditures in excess of revenue of about 2.8 million. So it's going to take this scenario 3 to at least get to where our baseline budget is for this year. So that's real important to remember. And also that this is all based on our current law. That's the best information I have at this point. House Bill 3. So like I said, next month I'll probably come and tell you it's totally different. That's the best information I have at this time. So looking at appropriations, again, I said our base is going to be where we're at for 2021. And at this point, in waiting until we get information on our funding system, we've really kept our additions to a minimum at this point. But based on our enrollment, we are anticipating 2 additional pre-K classrooms across the district. So we've netted those teachers in with the changes at all of the grade levels, but we will have to add 2 pre-K assistants. And in special education at this point, we are looking at at least 1 teacher and 2 instructional aides, and we're still reviewing that department's request at this time as well as projected enrollment. And looking at increasing the days for the elementary counselors to be able to bring them in a little bit earlier at the start of the school year to help those campuses out, and looking at everything that they have to do, it would be very beneficial to bring them in a little bit earlier than they have been. And at this point, the known expenditure increases are, I'm estimating at this point, property and casualty insurance again, with an increase. We need to increase the budget for our regional day school for the deaf, and of course cardonics that has been really crucial in our budget process this year. We've been using it very successfully. So last year we were able to find budget transfers, and the campuses assisted, if you'll recall, in funding it for this year to get it started. But we promised them we wouldn't have to tap into their budgets next year. So 126.2 at this point. I say at this point because I said we're still working on it. So if you look at our revenues in scenario 1, 2, and 3, that's scenario 1 with a 2.5% ADA growth would have, at this point, appropriations in excess of revenues of just shy of $2 million. And then in scenario 2, a 3% ADA and 3% property value growth, $1.1 million. And that last scenario, the 3.9%, if we can get there, would be at 262,000 at this point in time, negative. So the last one is ESSER, or our CARES Act monies. Kind of say where we're at and how it's going to affect this budget, and then I'll open it up for questions. But we've all known ESSER 1 funds. Those came last year. They were completely offset by a reduction in state revenues. We were fortunate enough to be able to at least postpone some of that use of funds to this current year to help us out, because you can see we needed it. So that was a good decision that you all allowed us to make. So we're using it, anticipate it will be fully utilized by the end of this fiscal year, so there won't be anything left in that category. ESSER 2 funds have not been released to the district. They have not been announced. And we're anticipating that we'll also have an offset to this one. It's probably going to help fund the hold, when they extended the hold harmless for the rest of the school year. It's anticipated that we'll have an offset, but we haven't been told yet. And then we have ESSER 3. These were the ones that were most recently announced. College Station ISD is to receive $12.8 million, of which they have allocated at this time 8.4. They haven't allocated the rest, but 12.8 is the amount that we should receive by the end. There's a lot of requirements with this monies. First of all, the main intent is to address learning loss and the social needs of our students and families because of the pandemic. So 20% of our funds must be spent to address the student learning loss. And that's not going to be hard to do. There is to be no offset for our state losses like they did in ESSER 1. We must solicit both internal as well as public input as we develop this process. So this is something that's going to take us a little while. The due date for the application is July 27th, and it will probably be in July before we submit the application to get through all of the required steps that we have to get to there. But we will keep you updated along the way. But recently, this past week, there was a committee substitute to what we call House Bill 1525. And this is the bill that is what they call the cleanup bill to House Bill 3. So it makes some few modifications, some clarifications to our prior funding bill. But what this committee substitute is proposing to do is to require school districts to set aside, based on a formula, fund balance in our general fund, equivalent to whatever this formula is. Some senators have said, let's just say 40%. That might be easier than the formula. And so basically we'll have to supplant our general fund expenditures. And by doing so, we will set aside a certain amount of fund balance, reserve it like we do for some catastrophic event or land, some things like that. So the attempt is to try to have school districts stretch this money out. So the end date for this fund is September 30, 2023. We can get a one-year extension on that to September 2024. So the intent here is to have districts hold back fund balance or create fund balance and reserve it to use in 24, 25 and beyond to try to extend the benefit for College Station of this $12 million. So then you'll be budgeting losses as you get into that. It's very complicated. So not all the same rules apply to general fund as do federal funds. So we have to pick and choose the right things to occur. As you can see, we've had negatives budget adoption before without these things. So it's a very complicated process, and it really throws a kink into our budget development at this point. Hopefully we'll get some answers next week to that. I have to say it's been a very interesting legislative year. So budget timeline, this is the same. So we're now at the workshop for May, and then on the 31st, legislative session is supposed to end. Hoping no special session there. And then we'll start refining the budget based on the revenues for our June workshop. In July, we get our certified property values, and in August, start the budget adoption. So with that, I'll see if I talked a lot, so see what questions you might have.
So you've said this several times, projections are based on current funding formulas.
Yes.
All of which could change tomorrow.
Changes daily.
Correct, kind of like executive orders. So that could change at any point in time. So, but the legislative session ends the 31st. If there's not a special session, then we will know our circumstances more clearly to run projections.
Right, we will. And it will take some time to kind of work through those models and make sure we understand them correctly. We do have some services that will help us through that process to make sure that we are interpreting and calculating correctly. So yes, we should know it by June 1st, and we'll start diligently working, but it'll take us a little time after that.
So the strings attached to the ESSER 3 funds with that fund balance portion of it, is this because the state just wants more control over that? Or I'm sorry, am I?
That's a good question as to why they're doing this, and they haven't said why, except the fact that there is a specified end date, and that's being September 2024 if you apply for that extension, and it's an automatic extension. So we have all the way to September 2024. Their justification is to extend the benefit or the use, that we don't have to use it in that specific time period. But there are districts with different needs.
Right.
And so it doesn't allow us to address the immediate needs that we have in the way that each district feels like they should.
Right. Yeah, whenever I listened in, and it was a couple weeks ago I listened in, before they had released the funds, before they had said they were going to allocate them to the school districts, I remember, I believe it was the Speaker of the House saying that he didn't want school districts, and I'm probably messing this up, but he didn't want the school districts to spend it unwisely. I think that was it. So it sounds to me like they're just trying to figure out how to help school districts.
Well, and some of them don't realize that the other things that we have to balance within the general fund. So I didn't even bring up the issue that this is going to cause with what we call maintenance of effort, and that's in our special ed area. So we have to show that we are not spending less per student this year than we did last year in our general funds. So that they want to make sure you're not using federal monies to supplant, which is this is going to do. So, and not only is it direct services to special ed, but things like counselors, which would qualify to go to ESSER, that benefit all students. So part of that is allocated into this maintenance of effort. And you all, many of you remember the huge budget reductions we had to do in 2011 and 12. It actually caused districts across the state to not meet their maintenance of effort because trying to not reduce in the classrooms, they were reducing everywhere that was in some indirect allocations to special education. So we have to be very careful and not jeopardize the district's position, because if you don't meet maintenance of effort, they lower your federal funds.
Oh, wow.
That's the penalty.
So we'll know how those funds are to be used at the end of the session, yes?
Yes, that's, they will, hopefully by May 31st, they will tell us if this committee substitute passes or doesn't.
Right, okay.
But we are, right now, districts are, developing their plans.
Right.
And we're starting to meet this week on that process ourselves. And then you've got some districts that have a June 30 year end, so they're adopting their budgets next month. So
Okay.
puts a really strain on them.
Thank you
Ms.
for
Stroh.
your hard work.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I just said thank you. I know this is really difficult, so thank you.
Sure.
I know you really do get to shoot at a moving target all year, it seems. The number we're basing off of with the demographers, though, is that the one from November, December? Is that the latest one we have?
Yes.
Okay. Just curious.
Yeah. He provided us some updates, but it really didn't change the numbers, anything, so. we're
Yes,
still
Mr.
using
Newton,
that.
he did. He provided us an update probably March, April,
Oh, it was
and it
about-
didn't change
yeah, it didn't
that.
really
It didn't
change
change the 3.9 that he reported in the fall.
Fair enough.
Mr. Ross?
Yes.
You mentioned that the application is due at the end of July. Have you seen yet the application requirements?
I've gone through or sat through 2 trainings so far, and I've shared them with many people in the district, so we can kind of share this responsibility. So I have seen what the application looks like, and there's a lot of parts to it. There's a lot of requirements that we have to share. Fortunately, we already have our safely return to school plan because we did that all year. So there's a lot of things that are new in this one that we don't have to do with other federal programs, but I have seen the application, and they have trainings pretty much weekly right now on that particular process to make sure we don't forget a step, because they will be reviewing it. So we'll do this in July, and then Texas Education Agency will start reviewing them and make sure that we did all of the required steps. We included all the stakeholders that should be notified and got public input. So probably somewhere 30, 45 days after that, we will get our notice of grant award. It does go back to March of 2020, so we can recapture other expenses that these other ESSER funds did not get to reimburse us for, so.
And so we're eligible for 12.8, is that right?
We're eligible for 12.8.
But
They have allocated about 8.4 so far. And so the application that we will do in July will be based on 8.4, and then we will have to amend it for the other when they allocate it out. So I found out that 2 days ago. So
Okay.
we will do that. The original application will only be for what they have
Allocated.
released so far.
Okay, thank you.
And when you say they have released it, through the state?
Through
or
the state.
The state.
Sorry,
right.
yes.
And I guess another clarification on the relief for ESSER funds. Am I correct when you kind of showed this year's budget that it's really less than 200,000 that we've spent in actual kind of in ESSER funds or COVID relief funds, plus the 600 that was for the technology?
No,
design
I'm
interpretation?
sorry, I probably didn't explain that correctly. We have
That's me.
spent a lot more than that in our ESSER funds. We've been doing a lot of some of our requirements or additional expenses for virtual. It's in a federal fund, but that is funds that we are going to reimburse, such as whenever the maintenance department had to buy more of the cleaning materials and those sorts of things. So that's reimbursements. Some of them are reimbursements still to the prior year, which that will be other revenue. So when we get done, that will probably be, some of that will be an offset to expenses, but at this point in the projection, it's easier to just put it down there as other. So we have spent much more, it's just reported in a separate fund. These are reimbursements that will come.
Okay, good. Glad I asked that. And you kind of mentioned also on the summer school, how you don't have that in the number. So, I mean, so what bucket is that coming from? What are the plans
We
right
plan
now?
on taking it, we were planning on using the ESSER 2 funds because we set some aside. So it will either be coming from ESSER 2 or ESSER 3, because like I said, we won't apply till July. Summer school will be over, but we can do what's called pre-award cost. So we'll probably, because we have those spend requirements, if everything goes right, we will be transferring those to ESSER 3 and using ESSER 2 to clean up on some other things. But we have factored that all in there. When I say summer school, the normal enrichment summer programs that the district has, which we collect tuition for, is in the general fund because we receive revenue offsets for those. So this would be only summer schools that we do not have a tuition or a fee for, or we plan on using one of the CARES Act funds available.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We look forward to next month. All right, well, that brings us to the end of our agenda, so we will adjourn and be back in a few moments.